Remnant from the ashes. Is it worth a buy? Is it? Let's read the words of the developer. The world has been thrown into chaos by an ancient evil from another dimension. As one of the last remnants of humanity, you must set out alone or alongside up to 2 other survivors to face down hordes of deadly enemies to try and carve a foothold, rebuild and retake what was lost.
Let's start with the graphics and the sound. The graphics in this game I wasn't impressed with. The environments, especially on the first 2 or 3 hours, they looked like studio sets. Especially the city. It just doesn't look convincing at all. I didn't feel immersed at all. Everything looks like a studio prop. It doesn't look real. It lacks that atmosphere completely. Now, when I played through the game, I came across some amazing places later on, and I kind of thought, why didn't the developers put them in first? You want to hit them with your good stuff first to keep people from refunding. And honestly, I think a lot of people will have got into this and thought, what the hell is this shit? Because that's what I thought as soon as I started to play it. The monsters look fantastic, but some of the environments just look too clean. It doesn't look real. Not impressed with that at all. How does it run? Well, I'm running at 2080 and I was running between about 70 and 120 frames a second. The frames were dropping, and I only knew that because I was looking at the actual counter, the frame counter. I didn't feel any drops when I was playing the game, but they were happening when I saw it. But the reason I didn't feel it is because it was always at a reasonably high FPS. I was running in 1080p purely for recording purposes, but I had everything on ultra. The guy I was playing with, he was running at 1070 and he had to turn things down to medium, but he was running it in 1440p. He did have a couple of noticeable frame drops, but overall he said it was quite well optimized. You can tell it was designed for consoles, and whenever that happens I get very scared about shit that they just don't put into the PC version. There is stuff. So let's get into that. Key bindings. If you don't use WASD, you are fucked because you cannot rebind all of the keys. Specifically, I think it's T and F will not rebind at all. They're just hard bound. I mean, there's no excuse for that. That's just lazy programming. Sound-wise, it sounds great. It really does, but I didn't really get any sense of proximity with the sound. I could hardly tell whether the enemies were close or far away because the sound kind of didn't really change. That was the only gripe I had. The music's good, the sound effects is really good of the monsters as well, and the guns sound nice as well, nice and meaty. Anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the story, the single player, the co-op. Is it Dark Souls with guns? Is it hard? Can casuals play this? And all the other stuff that you really want to hear in a review. The story is very forgettable, guys. Basically, the Earth's been taken over by the Root, and you have to go and kill it, and it's in a tower. You got to go and kill its heart in the tower. You can't get in the tower without this other guy that you've got to find, and to do that you talk to various NPCs who don't really guide you on your way that much. It's just bullshit. Basically, you have these multiple choice questions when you're talking to them that all kind of lead to the same answer anyway. So I didn't find myself engrossed in the storyline whatsoever. Another big negative of this game is the way they've handled melee combat. My goodness, guys, get this. You can't shoot from the hip in this game. When you try to shoot from the hip, you go into melee combat, which basically means if you're a mouse and keyboard player, well, it doesn't matter, it's got nothing to do with mouse and keyboard, it's the same for a controller. When you press your attack button, you will use a melee weapon, and not only that, you will lunge forward using a melee weapon, and it pretty much kills you a lot of the time when you don't want to use a melee weapon and you do that. For example, an exploding monster suddenly comes up from your left or right side. You turn to do a shotgun fire from the hip, you know, because you don't have time to aim down sight, so you just quickly turn and bam, and then all of a sudden, instead of going bam with your shotgun, you pull out a big fucking hammer, lunge at this exploding monster, kill it, it explodes and kills you. Happened to me about 10 times, especially in boss fights, and it's so fucking annoying. I've never known a game where you have guns and you can't shoot from the hip. Every game pretty much allows you to shoot from the hip with guns except this one. I mean, it's a perfectly viable attack that should be there. I mean, hip firing is inaccurate, but it's great at close range for them quick twitch shots that you're going to need. And in a game like this, you need them, believe me. But no, you can't do them. The only way you can stop going into melee combat is to aim down your sights. Tragic, guys. You can also roll around the floor like a prick in this game, but do you know what? It isn't too bad because you have a stamina bar, so you can't just roll around the floor like a prick forever. you know. And also, it's not like Dark Souls where you're invulnerable when you roll around the floor like a prick. In this, you can still be hit and killed rolling around the floor like a prick. I played through most of the game in solo, beat down quite a number of bosses in solo, but I've also played quite a lot of it now in co-op. And I have to say that in solo, it is way harder than co-op. The game does ramp up in co-op. The more players you have in, and you can have a maximum of 3, the game becomes significantly harder. It has also different mobs will attack you as well. Some mobs that I've never ever seen in solo, but I have seen in co-op. Some really nasty bastards as well. So it is a hard game. It's not an easy game, this. It really isn't, unless you're one of these ninja people. But for the average gamer, it's a bloody struggle and it is hard. Very, very unforgiving game. But in single player, it is freaking rock hard. And the reason for that is because you are constantly under attack of all the ads and the bosses. Worst though, guys, is the progression. The progression is kind of broken. There are no classes in this game. At the beginning you choose one of 3 characters, but all you're choosing is your starting weapons and mods, really. There's basically long range, medium range and short range weaponry in this game. I chose a shotgun, which is short range weaponry, and I was gimped because the first boss that I got past the first boss, but the second boss, the end, I couldn't get near him with a shotgun, so I had to come out of the boss battle and I had to level up. I had to go and buy a mid-range weapon. No, actually I think I bought the sniper rifle. Then I had to go kill a shit ton of mobs, collect the scraps of iron and that, go back to my base where your NPCs are, upgrade my weapon because you can do all of that, then go back and beat the end, which is what I did. But it kind of sucks because I ended up having to level up a mid-range, a long-range and a short-range weapon, which took a shit ton of resources, which meant a little bit of a grind for us. Eventually I was just settling for a mid-range weapon because I got bored of just trying to upgrade 3 at once. I couldn't really do it. So it's kind of sucks like that in solo. You don't have any of them problems in co-op because you can obviously, the synergy between you and your teammate, you can go long, medium, he can go short, or her, you know, so it is way better in co-op, but it is doable solo. There's people saying you can't do it in solo. Hey, I'm not very good at these type of games, and I've been killing all the bosses by myself, so if I can do it, anybody can do it. You just haven't got to rage quit. Some of the bosses took us about 7 attempts to beat them, so you know, you've just got to persevere. But it is kind of, let's talk a bit about the boss fights before I go into the mobs. The boss fights are pretty forgettable. There's a couple of bosses that's really fun. There's a guy, I think it's the Harrow or something, like the skeleton guy. He looks a bit like General Grievous. He was great fun, him. I really enjoyed him. The end was decent as well, but very predictable. It's like all Souls-like games. You just go in. I mean, I was streaming this last night and we came across a new boss and we just walked in, watched the boss for, I think, we just allowed ourselves to die twice, just so we could get the gist of the boss, what he did, and then we went in the 3rd time and just killed him. It's just like that. You learn their moves and then you've just got to kind of not fall for them. The end was a bit harder because the damage that you did on him was so small, and there was so many ads. That's the thing that does the boss fights. That kind of ruins the boss fights for me because you're not really fighting a boss. You're fighting all the ads that he keeps spawning, and they are numerous. They are shit tons. And that's a bit of a shame. If you're into boss fights, you're probably going to like this because there are a lot of bosses in this game and a lot of different types of enemies. But I've had most of my fun fighting the enemies in co-op as well, because some of these enemies, and there are loads of them, are absolutely pure fucking evil, guys. And one of the things I love about this game is you constantly run out of ammo. There are ammo drops on the ads, but when you're playing in co-op, you've got to feed 2 people with 2 weapons each, and that is no easy feat. There's not enough ammo for you. You're going to keep needing to jump into ammo packs that you can buy from vendors. You can buy first aid kits, you can buy flasks that boost you over and through death for an hour. I'll talk about death in a second, not IRL. There's lots of things that you can buy to boost you on your way when you go back to your base, and you can go back to your base anytime you like when you come to one of these crystals, which is basically your Dark Souls bonfires. They save you progress, they reset all your ammunition and everything, but they also respawn all the enemies, and they allow you to fast travel to other places that you've already visited, and more importantly back to your base where these NPCs are, that allow you to upgrade all your gear. But everybody's gear is the same. There's no kind of good progression on the gear. It's a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have seen a bit of different gear going on, and you kind of end up with you using the same weapons all the way through. You do get new weapons when you've actually beaten a boss, and you do get mods that each weapon can have, which is really cool. For example, one of the best mods is the mod you get straight away with the scrapper. You put it on your weapon, and when you can see at the bottom right there's a ring. As you're firing, it starts getting fuller and fuller, and after about 20 shots or so you can activate this mod that lasts about 20 seconds. And the one I use is it makes your bullets incendiary rounds, which does shit tons of damage to the enemy, and also burns the enemy over time. There's lots of other different mods that you can get that cause corrosive pools around you that the enemy take damage when they step in, and basic things like that. There's also a big perk system in this. The perks themselves don't seem to do much because they just give small increments, but when you've had about 40 perks put in, it does make a shit ton of difference, and they're very, very important. Also as well, you get these hearts that you can use that restore your health to full. It's about a 1 second cast, and you can upgrade them so you get more and more of them, which are lifesavers as well. And also you have your first aid kits, which are very important. So there's a lot of stuff there to keep you alive, but when enemies can just one-shot you, if you make a mistake, if you f*** up even the slightest bit on a boss fight, you're gonna probably be killed. So it does take tenacity, it takes dedication, and get good. So coming back to when you die, if you're in the middle of a level and you die, you go back to the last, well, it's the Dark Souls bonfire things, these crystal things. You go back to the last one of them. You don't lose your stuff. If you've found anything on that run, you keep it, but all the enemies will respawn. So there's no real punishment for it. I mean, especially with the boss fights, there's always kind of one of these bonfire things just before a boss fight, so you only go back about 20 seconds and you just run straight back in and have another go at the boss fight. So there's not really any big consequences for dying. Overall, yes, there's bugs in this game. Yes, there's a few optimizational issues. Yes, there's a bad fucking design choice on the way melee combat works with no shooting from the hip. Yes, the story's a big pile of shit, and also some of the hitboxes are a little bit off when you shoot, and you'll see that in this video quite often. But I actually really enjoy this game. If you're just looking for a game that's going to be really good fun to play, then this is it. It has fantastic gunplay. When you shoot the enemies, they reel back from it. The guns have weight. It feels great. And do you know what? They all stagger, you know, like I just said, as they reel back. And when you're getting attacked off 3 or 4 enemies at once, and you just have to spread the love, a bullet for you, sir, a bullet for you, sir, a bullet for you, sir, and all of that, and just watch them staggering back just to keep you back, and then you suddenly fucking run out of bullets. Oh, shit. It's great. You have lots of oh shit moments in this game. Lots of times you're running for your life, just dodging here, dodging there. I absolutely love the combat. I'm just going to say this to end with, it could have been a hell of a lot better. First person would have made it better, less clunky, because it is a bit clunky now and then, and obviously having all your keys being able to rebind. But it's a great co-op game. If you've got a friend and you like these type of games, then it's going to be a blast. You can also do it solo. I did, so you can. So there you go, guys. Remnant from the Ashes is definitely worth a buy.